This video is going to provide you with a brief introduction to the scholarship at UWindsor Institutional Repository. So the main goal of the scholarship at UWindsor Repository is to act as a showcase for research at the University of Windsor. What we want to do is bring together the papers and presentations and other scholarly works from researchers on our campus and host them in one place in the scholarship at UWindsor Repository. This repository will be accessible to people not just within our institution but outside our institution as well, so it's going to increase the visibility and accessibility of our work. So in the rest of this demonstration, I'm going to give you a tour of the website and how to access the materials here and take a look at some of the different features that are involved with the scholarship at UWindsor Repository. The main page of the repository presents you with a number of options for accessing its content, and to see quickly at a glance what kind of content is held here in the scholarship at UWindsor Repository. So you'll notice there are two links here. First, faculties, departments, and research units. And this is going to give you a breakdown of content in the repository by these groups on campus. In addition to that, there's a link for electronic theses and dissertations. And so this is going to group together master's and PhD theses and dissertations from the University of Windsor. You'll also notice there's a graphic visual representation of the content in the repository. And if we take a look at this, we can see visually a representation of the kinds of content that is available in the repository right now. As content gets added to the repository, this visualization will change and update to reflect the new content. You'll also notice there's a top 10 downloads link, so we'll see which articles in the repository are being accessed frequently, which articles have been recently added to the repository, and a paper of the day, which will of course update every day to reflect a new piece of content from the repository. At the bottom we can see what the total access information is for the repository right now, so how many papers are here and how many downloads there have been to date and in the past year. So the repository is still is quite new, and over time as the content expands in the repository, so will its accessibility and the number of downloads that we see, of course. Along the side you can see that you can set up an RSS feed to be notified about specific kinds of content that get added to the repository. There are advanced searching options for doing keyword searching and topic searching on work in the repository. And again, we have different links for accessing theses, the department collections, and a disciplinary breakdown, which we'll take a look at in a moment, and also a breakdown by author. There's a frequently asked questions sections for authors, and a link for submitting research. And I'll take a closer look at these things in a moment. Right now I'm going to click on the Faculties, Departments, and Research Units link on the main page. And this is going to take us to a list of the different departments and research units that have hosted works in the repository right now. It's not a complete list at this time since the repository is just released, but we're continuing to work with different groups on campus to make sure everyone has some representation here. But for the time being, we can get an illustration of the kind of works that are available. So if I click on physics publications, for example, I can get a brief description of the department's research interests and then a listing of the different publications that are available. If I were to click on one of these publications, it'll give me the bibliographic details, so who are the authors, the title, what's the abstract, where was it initially published, where's the source of the initial publication, and of course importantly there's a link here to download the article, which after doing, if you click on it, it'll just pop open as a PDF for you. So once this article pops up for us, you'll notice that there's a splash page at the front that has the University of Windsor logo and the scholarship at UWindsor tagging. And the reason that this is here is that users are going to access these works from a lot of different places. And typically they'll be coming through something like Google Scholar or Google or through a different method than simply through our university's web pages. So since they're coming from outside of our university, we want to make sure it's clear where this article is coming from. So it's research hosted at the University of Windsor by a University of Windsor scholar, and that is made clear by the splash page for us. This also has the branding of the article, the journal of original publication, and of course then the article itself. So there are a few other ways that you can access and look at the content here in the repository, and I'll take a look at those in a moment. Along the right-hand side of the page, you'll notice there's a few other links. We've already looked at collections, which is essentially the faculty's departments and research units, and we've also mentioned the electronic theses and dissertations. If you click on disciplines, it's going to give you a generic set of subheadings which organizes the research in the repository. So if I were to look at business and then authors, it's going to give me a listing of different authors who've published under the topic of business. And we'll get a quick visual representation of how many works they have available. And if I click on someone's name, I can get a listing of their papers. Again, if I click on the paper, it'll give me the bibliographic details, and if possible, I can download that paper. Authors is just going to give us a quick A to Z listing, so if there's someone specific you're looking for, you might do this. But it might also be more effective to simply search for that name in the repository with the search engine. If I click on Advanced Search, it's going to give me a few more options. So I can look in different fields. I can specify a date range. I can look in just this repository or all repositories. And I can also look at the different formats. So for example, I might be interested in fuel, and this is going to give me everything that's related to that keyword. I can also facet this down and look at specific subsections of these results, so I may just want to look at mechanical engineering, and it'll give me a listing of those articles, or theses in this case. So this has been a brief introduction to the Scholarship at UWindsor repository, and there are a few other features to be aware of that I'll talk about in the future, specifically submitting research. And as this develops, hopefully you get the opportunity to take advantage of it and host your work here where possible in the Scholarship at UWindsor repository. Thanks for your time.